Hey, what's up, y'all? I wanted to share an experience that I had with a client and just some learning points that came out of this experience. And I feel like it's like a protocol that I'm using in specific situations that I think is really helpful. And it's something along the lines of seeing yourself as a flexible and adaptive superhero version of yourself and using that to help you answer questions about how you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to behave, decisions you're trying to make, trying to put yourself in this position of seeing yourself in that optimal state and what would that kind of person do in this situation. So I have a client and he is just freaking amazing. He's a young guy and came to me as a referral from a doctor, insulin resistance, extremely overweight, some other inflammatory markers. And we started working together, and the guy is just awesome for being such a young person. I'm just blown away at his diligence, like his understanding of what we talk about when it comes to, and we talk about everything. We talk about real food and nutrition, we talk about sleep. He's got a meditation practice in place now. So he understands the concepts, and he also is extremely diligent putting them into practice and has seen just tremendous changes. He's lost close to 100 pounds. A lot of his symptoms have resolved, and he's doing these daily things. He's meditating every morning, he does some envisioning, he goes for a solitary walk, his food is perfect, he's got those planned out at certain times of the day, his sleep is on point, he's got a nice little routine, he gets sun during the day, he does all the things necessary to facilitate health in these different areas that we've talked about. And he texted me one day and was just kind of concerned about, he's a young guy and he wants to integrate his life back with his friends. He wants to enjoy life. He wants to, start hanging out again and going out to restaurants with them and just doing the things that young people do. But he's really nervous about disrupting this health routine that he has and is curious, like if I go to bed a little bit later than normal, or if I get up a little bit later, or if I have a meal that's at a different time, or if I have a cheat meal, or if I skip my morning process, if I do my morning process somewhere else or at another time of day, like, is that going to mess everything up? And he was really, really nervous about that. And I think I can relate to that. And I think there was a time that I was much more, I had a much more firm stronghold on the things that I'm doing, and I wasn't very flexible and adaptive because of this fear of, like, if I don't do the things that I'm doing, or even just one of these things, then I'm going to feel it the next day. I think there's some value in that to some degree because it's useful to have a routine that supports your health and that you are pretty consistent with, because that's what we want. We want these health habits that we do most days, but I also think it's useful to be flexible and adaptive in certain situations. So I asked him, I said, what he was really struggling about, like, is it going to be a huge problem if I go to bed at a different time? Like, is it going to mess everything else up that I'm doing? If I end up skipping out on the routine, if I end up eating out somewhere different, he was just going through all these scenarios and he was so scared to lose what he had. And this is a common theme with him, as we've worked together, he always gets nervous about doing something different because what he's doing is working. And I was like, hey, why don't we just pretend for a moment that we are the most optimal, awesome version of ourselves. Just imagine that you're this, and he likes superheroes. He likes the analogy of superheroes. I was like, just imagine that you're this just ultimate version of yourself. And let's try to describe some characteristics of that ultimate version. Because what he wants is not the way that he is right now. What he wants is to be flexible and adaptive and to be cool and calm. He's this guy that does all the things necessary for health. He eats 100% fresh real food almost all the time. He sleeps well every night. He gets up, he meditates every day. But this version of himself is also not stressed and neurotic about, missing out on getting up at a certain time every day. Like if he misses that one day, is this superhero version of yourself, is he going to get freaked out and stressed out because he missed one meditation session? Is he going to get freaked out and stressed out that he stayed up 2 hours later than normal because of a special occasion? When we went through these different scenarios, no, this awesome version of yourself is you're doing what you need to do to be healthy, and you're flexible and adaptive to this modern world, and you're cool. You understand that as long as I do follow these basic guidelines and I have these guide rails, then within that, like, it's fine for me to like change things up just a little bit because I'm still doing what I need to do to be healthy. And, that made a lot of sense to him. That resonated with him, And then from there, it was really just a matter of just trying it out, doing it one time. And sure enough, when he did it, he was fine. I was like, look, dude, if you're eating 100% fresh real food every day, and most days you have your timing that you feel very comfortable with, but like one day here and there, once a week or a couple times a week, like you have your meal timing is slightly different, or he's decided for him 1 time a month is totally fine for him to go off plan and just eat whatever the heck he wants, right? As long as he's doing these other things the majority of the time and committing to his routine the majority of the time, then these little, situations are not going to derail everything that he's working so hard for. And the same thing with his sleep habits. It's like if he's getting sun every single day, and when he goes to bed, no matter what time that is, when he goes to bed, he minimizes his stimulus, makes his room nice and cool and dark. Like if he's doing these things, most nights he's going to bed at one time with a little bit of a bedtime routine, but every now and then, once a week, a couple times a week maybe, he'll be out late with his friends. As long as he's still getting sun and doing these things that facilitate good sleep, it's totally fine. And that's exactly what he's been experiencing. So I just thought that was just a really useful insight. I think a lot of us sometimes, and we do promote and preach having a solid health routine and sticking to the things that make you healthy most days at the same time so that you can make that a part of who you are. And at the same time, I think it's also very beneficial to be flexible and adaptive with it and not have such a stronghold on it so that you feel like you're messing things up and you have a perfectionist mindset and you beat yourself up because you have to miss out on something one day or do something at a different time or something along those lines. So and just to share a personal example, so I don't like going to bed later than my normal time, and at the same time, if we have a social situation, someone that's invited us over for dinner, like immediately, as soon as I feel that little bit of like I'm nervous about staying up late, like I tell myself, like this is the optimal ideal version of myself, someone that can adapt to any situation and is going to be totally awesome no matter what, right? And so that will happen here and there, and I'll come home and sure enough, I'll sleep like a champ and I'll get up the next morning and feel great. I have allowed myself to change up my eating times and purposely normally I would eat 1 time a day. Sometimes I would do 2 times a day. Now I'm purposely allowing myself to eat something here and there. And if I'm hungry, middle of the morning, I'll do that. I'm usually not, but if I am, it's totally fine. Nothing changes, nothing derails. I even allow myself to have some carbohydrates first part of the day. I'll have some honey in my tea, just as an experiment. I won't do it every day, but I'll do it some days. And I don't notice anything different from it because the majority of what I do most of the time is completely dialed in and exactly what I need it to be. And I have the ability to be flexible and adaptive when I need to too. All right. I think that's just a really good way to look at things. Let's talk about what we can do. What can we do moving forward to get the benefits of this little discussion? I'd say, first of all, have a clear vision of the kind of person that you want to be. Create a vision for yourself in every area of your life. I think it's beneficial to segment your area into life categories like, health, career, relationships, finance. You can come up with your own terms, but just get a clear vision for the kind of person that you want to be in those different areas, and get a vision for the kind of person that you want to be in situations that you're unsure of, that you're not sure how to handle. Because when you start to see yourself as this awesome superhero version of yourself, or whatever you want to call it, or however you want to see that, it becomes very clear what that kind of person does in those situations, how that person handles these types of challenges, what that person does with these kinds of conversations. It's almost like watching a movie of yourself, but this version of yourself is the most awesome, amazing version of yourself. That gives some really good insight as to what you're supposed to do. So create a clear vision for yourself as far as what you think you know right now. Figure out what things you need to do on a daily basis to be that kind of person, and also schedule those things into your day. So I think it's really beneficial to map out an ideal day and say, this is where I'm plugging in the activities that I know I need to have in place to look, feel, and perform my best. For most of us, we're going to have like a personal quiet time with meditation. We're going to have a workout. We're going to have a fitness So for most of us, that means we're going to have a wake-up time, quiet time, personal time, meditation time. We're going to have a workout time. We're going to have our meals, and then we're going to have an ideal bedtime. Maybe you have in there getting outside, getting some sunlight or something like that. But whatever those things are, put those into an ideal day, and that's the routine that you try to follow most days, but also have this attitude of being completely adaptable and flexible, and actually allowing yourself to go off plan a little bit, allowing yourself to change things up just a little bit, so that you have the confidence in what you're doing from a foundational level. And I think most of us would prefer to be flexible and adaptive. I think, the default should be the same things at the same times most days to cultivate these habits, but also just integrating some flexibility and adaptiveness. And then finally, I'd say just introducing some self-compassion. Especially if you're the kind of person that tends to beat yourself up for not being perfect or not doing things right all the time. Just understand that nobody's perfect all the time. Nobody gets it right all the time. We're all human, and we're all on this journey together trying to figure out ourselves and our health and what this life is about, right? So I feel like, when you find health, you find yourself. If you make health a priority, a lot of things get very clear for you. And to do that, for most of us, we need the rigidity of a daily routine, but we also want to be very flexible and adaptive and be able to deal with the many different situations and challenges life throws at us, while maintaining a baseline of things that we need to do to make us healthy. So we have an understanding of what we need to do to eat real food, and at the same time the timing, the amounts, and that can be kind of flexible. And then finally, I would say just try to notice when you're beating yourself up, when you're not perfect with things, when you don't get everything right, when things don't seem to be working out in your favor, or you're nervous about disrupting things to some degree. And just understand that that's the place to introduce some self-compassion. And if you can see that in yourself, and you can see yourself doing that to yourself, you can have some self-compassion, and also flip that into, hey, what would I rather be here? I'd rather be flexible and adaptive and cool and calm and abiding by some certain rules most days, but at the same time, if I kind of venture outside of that, it's no big deal. And then finally, I'd highly recommend just noticing yourself beat yourself up about not being perfect, or stressing out about not being able to get everything in one day, or not being able to hit the times that you're used to for certain things, or the amounts. Or I think a lot of us get kind of stressed out when we get outside of our routine. I think the routine is really beneficial, but at the same time, I think some of us cause ourselves some unnecessary stress and emotional damage, getting too hung up on it and being too rigid with it. So just having some self-compassion and understanding that as you're trying to figure life out, and as you're trying to figure out these things that make you healthy and happy, and how to integrate it in this modern crazy life, being flexible and adaptive is great. Also, if something just doesn't seem to be working, even though you're trying to make it fit, maybe that's giving you some feedback about a change that you need to make. It's clarifying what you do want and what you don't want, and what you like and don't like, and it's also maybe helping you clarify the best times and durations for these different things. So everything is either giving you what you want, or it's giving you feedback to help you figure out what it is you need to change to get what you want. So any way you look at it, as long as you have the perception, everything is working in your favor no matter what. So hope that's useful. I have a lot of amazing client experiences that I always want to share, and I kind of hesitate, or I get distracted with something else. I'm going to try to do this a little bit more often, okay? So let me know if it's useful. Talk to you guys soon.